everyone, it's Rebecca here. Welcome back. In today's video, I am building a large family home in the world of Newcrest. And the style of this home is craftsman. The exterior is going to be all brick, and this is definitely going to be a historical home with a lot of historical features and design elements. I did look at a couple of images on Google for inspiration. I think I literally just Googled Southern Craftsman Home. And the reason for this is because this is for my save file, and the world of Newcrest in my save file is inspired by the southeastern United States. So I really love the craftsman style, and I think they're especially charming in the South. And they are neighbors to the Pancakes. So the Pancakes live 2 houses down from this household. And so I'm keeping all the homes that are built in this area in the same style. They're all going to have brick elements and craftsman elements as well. When I built this home, I didn't have the family created yet, and I was initially planning on leaving this unfurnished. And then as I went along, I thought, oh, maybe I could move the Price family household in here from the high school years pack. And then I kept going, and when I started furnishing it, I actually decided to create a brand new family for this save. And the other reason for that is also because I'd already built a home for the Price family. And that one's on my gallery if you want to take a look at that. I built them a little big mansion. Originally, I had them living in Copperdale, where they're originally located, but then I moved the Price family to the top part of the Newcrest map, so I have relocated the home that I uploaded on the gallery, but I have decided to keep them in the house that I originally built for them. And so there's going to be a brand new family in here. Again, I didn't have the family created when I built this home. I did make the family after I fully furnished it, so I was kind of winging it as I was furnishing it and coming up with ideas for the family that might live here. But this is a full house, so we will have 6 Sims and 2 pets in this household, and there is plenty of room for everyone. Everyone gets their own room and extra space to hang out and do family activities and arts and crafts, and there's a pool as well. So this is a very full home with lots of things for your sim to do. Now, I kind of talked through the exterior. It's more or less finished. This is going to be the style that it's in with a couple of modifications. And here on the screen, I am working on the layout, and this came together pretty much immediately. I think because of the size of the lot and the fact that it is narrow, it was pretty easy to come up with a layout that fit that shape of home. And I was just going for a very traditional layout. I also really love making hallways. So when I make larger homes and historical homes, I love putting in little nooks and crannies and little secret hallways. So we've got a lot of really cool spaces in this home. You can see that I put down 1 staircase, but there is going to be a second staircase that leads all the way to the attic. And that's going to be one of the historical features of this home. I did look at some reference images from Google, like I said. So that is where the look of the outside comes from, but the interior is completely from my imagination. I did also mention in my pancakes video that I take a lot of inspiration from the HGTV show Hometown. So in addition to Newcrest being inspired by the southeastern United States, a lot of the ideas that I have for the interiors for the homes are based off of homes and things that I've seen on that show. And that is such a comfort show of mine. I really love watching it. And like I said in my previous video, I really love Erin's style on that show. I like that they keep the historical elements of a home, I really like that they keep rooms separated when it works for the layout of the house. So I think that is a really lovely way to work with historical homes. Me personally, I don't know if I'd want to live in a historical home just because of the upkeep. I do prefer a more modern style, but when it comes to preserving the character of the home and all the little elements of it that make it special, I think they do a really fantastic job. So that's been a really big inspiration as I am building in Newcrest. And for sure, this home, although I didn't have anything specific in mind for reference for the home, there are little bits and pieces and elements that I did think of, particularly in the kitchen, which I'll talk a little bit about once that shows up on screen. But yeah, so we are just setting down the floors here. I went for a dark timber, which works really nicely with the baseboards and crown molding that we have in the base game. So I wanted to make sure that that was nice and matching, and also makes the home feel a lot more historic, which I really love. You can see that the layout is more or less complete here for the first 2 floors. So on the first floor, we have a parlor, a study, a formal dining room, a formal living room, and what originally started as a guest bedroom but then turns into a proper bedroom for a family member that I create later on. And then on the second floor, we've got 4 full bedrooms, including the primary suite, which has an ensuite, and then an additional 2 bathrooms. One of them is shared for 2 bedrooms, and then the third bedroom has a small ensuite as well. And then the top floor, which is the attic, that's going to have a bonus room. And then I add a full bathroom for any guests that might be staying up there. And we have a couple of storage rooms as well, which I thought was really nice and realistic to have little closets and storage spaces that you can fill with whatever you need to keep from your Sims inventory. So that's the purpose of that. The landscaping for this home is pretty minor, mostly because the home itself and the back patio and pool take up most of the space on the lot, so the landscaping was very nice and straightforward. They're also as of right now, the only home in Newcrest with a pool, so that definitely makes this a very fancy home. I do have 2 lots completed to the other side of this home, and I think maybe the last home that I built on the block will probably be a large home like this with a pool. So there will be a couple of small houses that are a little bit more affordable, and then we'll have the huge houses like this that are a little bit fancier and a little bit more stately. And here I'm just updating the windows in the attic. Just wanted something a little bit smaller for those rooms. And I've got some of the paint and wallpapers down. So again, I have the matching baseboards and crown molding to the floor, so it is nice and warm in these rooms. I am beginning the ultimate struggle of placing down curtains over there, although it was a little bit easier with this more historical style home because there's only so many curtains that can fit those windows really well, so that didn't take too long. And here we're finally in the kitchen. So what I mentioned earlier is that in my mind I had the idea of, once I started working in this kitchen, I thought the family that moved in here, they probably remodeled this home and they've probably been living in it for, I don't know, maybe 10, 15 years. But when they moved in, it did need some remodeling. And I imagined that the kitchen would have been a really old kitchen, maybe from the 60s or 70s, and that the appliances were blue. And even though they came in here with a designer or an architect, they might have said like, oh, I really love the fridge, I wish we could keep it because I really like the color. So when they remodeled it, they wanted to give a nod to the original kitchen and have some blue appliances. And the way that my mind works is that I just had the full on like TV show playing in my head, imagining, the Sims coming in and doing a tour, hometown style, and thinking about how they could remodel it and deciding on the spot that they would have blue appliances to honor the original kitchen, or at least the 1960s kitchen that would have been here. Though I imagine this home is a lot older than that, probably early 1900s or something like that. Though it is kind of funny to think about the Sims timeline, mostly just because time doesn't really pass in The Sims. Technology doesn't change. Fashion styles don't really change unless you do that yourself actively in your save files. So you can have 10 generations and they're using the same computers and they're using the same, mobile phones and things like that. So it's kind of funny to think about real life timeline inspiration for a house in a world where time doesn't really move the same way. So it's kind of trippy to think about it that way. We have put down some basic lighting, and we're doing that here on the outside. This is a really cozy home at night, and it's not hard to imagine seeing fireflies flying around and hearing the crickets chirp in the summer. So I had a lot of fun imagining the family living here, spending time outdoors in the evenings after having a barbecue and hanging out by the pool. I think that would be just really, really lovely. Right now on the screen, we've got the parlor. So very fancy to have a parlor room. Not really functional for anything other than having conversations. So this would be a really fun room to remodel for other purposes. So if you have any hobbies or skills that you want your Sims to work on, that's a great room for changing it up and adding items that you might want them to use. And this is the laundry room. So I really like this room. It's really small, but I did put in a little bit more effort than in my last build, which was just a very standard, non-detailed living room or laundry room. And I did imagine that somebody playing in this house would probably be a little bit more focused on family gameplay. So it'd be really fun to have a nice, detailed and realistic laundry room. So I did put in the effort to do that. I do love putting in laundry, even though it's not my favorite gameplay. It's just so realistic to have a little laundry room like this, especially in these bigger homes. And that also feels like a very, of the last 10, 15 years, I feel like there's more of a focus or a trend to have these fully blown laundry rooms that are nicely detailed and decorated and have fancy hardware and proper counters and things like that. Whereas maybe 20 years ago or so, laundry rooms were just laundry rooms, and now they're just a part of a statement about your home. So it's kind of funny to think about how those things change. Here I'm adding a pool house in the back. It's really just for storage, and I think I put in maybe a woodworking table, and maybe not, but I just put in some pool items and some clutter. And that is also a room that could be really good for, again, woodworking. The family that I create after making this house, the mom is actually a mechanical engineer. So for my save file, I'm going to put the robotics station in there. I don't have it for the upload because I created the family after I put all the files together. But you could definitely add that if you want your sim to work on robotics or juice fizzing or fabrication. So that's a really great room for doing activities like that. Just adding some clutter in the kitchen. I've got that fabulous coffee machine from the Cozy Bistro kit. I love using that. It's such a good design, and the quality of the items from that pack are absolutely fantastic, and I do love leaving little wine bottles around the place. They are really, really cute. This right here is the first floor powder room. So it is a half bathroom, and I keep putting the lavender style flowers from Horse Ranch everywhere. I think that the family that lives here really loves lavender, and that you can smell lavender throughout the home. And I also, when I created the family for this house, I have a family member who's moved in who used to live out in the countryside. So I decided that there would be parents, 3 kids, and then the dad's brother is moving in, and I think he loves baking. So I can imagine that he's probably baking all the time and that this home just smells like, you know, cookies and lemon bars and lavender all the time. But as far as the parents are concerned, like I said, the mom is the mechanical engineer and the dad is in the military, is what I decided. And I think they're both very like structured, regimented people just by nature. So a lot of the furnishings on the first floor, as well as their primary suite, are very symmetrical, very ordered. They don't probably allow any mess on the first floor or in the common family areas, and they demand that their kids keep the mess either in their rooms or in the bonus rooms. So I can picture that the family would definitely keep things clean and presentable for guests on the first floor, and then all the mess, like I said, stays in the bonus room, which is in the attic. But when I was decorating that office just now, I put down the item from the military career that holds the, oh gosh, the badges, the medals. And that's when I decided that either one or both of the family members would be in the military. So that's how I decided on that storyline. This is the primary suite ensuite, and if you've watched my pancakes home build, you might notice that this is more or less a complete copy of the bathroom that they have in their primary suite. And after I built that bathroom in that previous video, I just knew that I would be using that style and layout for many of my homes. So yeah, I'm really happy that those one tile showers work so well. And in this bathroom here, this is shared between the two youngest children. So it is a little bit smaller, but still very fancy. They still get those very premium countertops, the marble countertops, which is kind of crazy for a bathroom. But this family definitely has enough money to go around. So both the parents are very high in their careers, and they're not struggling for money in this household, that's for sure. This is the parents' primary suite, so as you can see, extremely symmetrical, no clutter at all. I add a bookcase here, and then later on, I don't think I do it on camera, but I do add a dog bed in their bedroom. I imagine that the parents have the dog sleep in their room. They probably love that dog, and it's probably the one exception to their cleanliness rule is letting the dog sleep in their room. Not on the bed, in the dog bed, but nevertheless in their room. Right now on screen, I am reconfiguring the layout for the back staircase because I decided that I wanted one of the bedrooms upstairs to have a full walk-in closet. Because originally I didn't make room for that, and I wanted to use the closets from Get Together that are 2x2 tiles, just because they match the style of the home a little bit better. So I had to reorganize the staircase back there so that could fit. And here I'm pulling out some items for the kids' rooms. We'll get to both of these a little bit later, and we'll move on to the oldest child's room. And this child, I decided, would be really into comics and art. So I think this is a kid that spends a lot of time doing fan art. After I made the Sims for this home, I made this teenager be creative and cringe. And I think that this is someone who just doesn't really care and is very open and fanatic about their interests, but in the best way. So I really love this item that we're seeing right now from the Artist Studio kit, the swatch with the fan art, including like the fan art of the Grim Reaper. I really like that one. It was perfect for this room, perfect for a teenager's room that really loves doing fan art. But otherwise, yeah, it's a pretty cluttered room. Not everything is going to be fully accessible. I made sure that at least one side of the bed was accessible for all the kids, but both sides definitely aren't. And there are going to be some elements that aren't necessarily going to be accessible, even though I play tested the major elements. So a lot of the walk-in closets, even though I built them to fit them, they're not necessarily going to be able to get into them. So the middle child is going to have just a bunch of stuff in front of her closet. But right here, this is the youngest child's room. And when I made this family, the trait that I picked for this kid is good. And so this is just a bright, happy child who just wants the best for everyone, even though they live in a chaotic house with some pretty chaotic siblings. They just want the best for the world, you know? They're the sim that wants world peace. They love void critters, so I put up a couple of posters of the void critters from, we've got them from a couple of different packs now, I think, but I really like that that is kind of the Pokemon of the Sims 4 universe, so I really love putting those posters up in kids' rooms. If I was a kid in The Sims 4, I would definitely be into void critters, that's for sure. When I was a kid, I loved the Pokemon games, and I loved the Digimon anime, so monsters were a huge thing for me. I even watched, even though I wasn't that into it, I watched, you know, Monster Rancher, and even though I wasn't a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh, a lot of my friends were, and so I love that kind of stuff, and so if I was a kid in this universe, I definitely would have been a fan of that. Though I relate probably most to the oldest kid who's doing all the fan art, because that's definitely me. I was definitely just doing tons of fan art as a kid and still do art to this day. So I definitely related a lot to that child. And the room that you're seeing now on screen is for the middle child. And I imagine that she's a preteen. Her trait is mean. And I think she's going to be a really messy child. I just wanted stuff just all over her room. Like, she doesn't clean even when she's told to. I think she took it to heart when her parents told her to keep the mess in her room, and she was like, okay, I will, and then it just stays messy. But I think the rules for this house are, if it's in your room, you're responsible for it. So if you don't like that it's messy, you have to clean it up. But otherwise you can just live in the mess if that's how you want to live. And she's like, okay, fine. That's exactly how I'll live. But I really like decorating her room. I love all the items that came from high school years. I really do use them for every single family home. The items are just really fantastic for that. And this is the shared bathroom for the two youngest kids. So I didn't put a lot of clutter in the parents' bathroom or the ensuite for the oldest kid, because they probably wouldn't leave as much of a mess in their bathroom, especially the parents. But because the youngest two kids are a little bit messier, and because the preteen is especially messy, I just put a bunch of clutter on the counters, and all of it except for the void critter toothbrush is probably her stuff. So just like with their bedrooms, the mess stays in the bathroom, and all the guest bathrooms are the ones that stay clean. So that's probably how that works for them. And then this final bedroom is for what I decided would be the father's brother. So the uncle of the family lives in here. As I was decorating this room, I hadn't quite come up with a story for him yet, but I knew that it would be somebody who really loves plants and nature and reading. So the sim that lives in here, I think I made him a loner, a bookworm, and a cat lover. So he moves in with his cat. So I do put in a cat bed and a scratching post for them to hang out in here. And on this lot, the lighting in here is really pretty. He gets some really nice morning light that hits the love seat and the plants that are in the room. So that's a really cozy room. And he also has his own ensuite, which I furnished off camera. So he doesn't have to worry about going upstairs to use the shared bathroom with the kids. And then we're finally on the attic, and this is the bonus room. So they get a nice large projector screen, although I switched that out for a normal TV. But yeah, they get a large screen, they get plenty of games to play. I put in an artist table here. This was probably used the most by the oldest kid when he was growing up, and I think the other two younger kids don't really use it as much, but that's a relic from the past. I did put in a ping pong table as well. The door that leads to the storage room, that just has the decoration box from Seasons, although I did place another one on the second floor storage room as well. And then this final room is just a little artist studio. I don't actually think that this is for the oldest child. I don't think that he comes up here all that often. Maybe this is a hobby for one of the parents or the uncle. I'm not quite sure yet, but we are nearing the end of the video. Lastly, here I am just adding some terrain paint to finish things off. And I somehow managed to fill up the space of this video with my rambling, which I didn't anticipate. But I'd really love to hear what you think about this build, if you imagine a different type of family that lives here. And if you want to download it, I will have links in the description for the tray files. This will also be on my gallery. My ID is reblueka, exactly the same username as my YouTube username. And if you do use this build, if you take any screenshots and you're on Tumblr, please tag me. I have the exact same username on there as well. So I would really love to see if you use this build at all. But that's about it. So thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Bye bye.